I wanted to point out why it's so imperative now to get out of debt. I first started the channel to talk about credit cards and what credit cards you could use to your advantage and how to use them. In previous articles, I showed that credit card debt is over $1 trillion for Americans in the US. You have people saying on TV and articles that we're not having any economic problems, that we're not in a recession. Well, none of that really matters if we are or we aren't with respect to you. What matters to you is, are you ready if we have a big downturn? Now, let me give you an example. Two articles I want to point out. First, if you enjoy these videos, I'd really appreciate if you gave a thumbs up for the video and you should subscribe so you don't miss future videos. It really helps the channel out and I appreciate it. This one here was on CNBC. And there's two things they said at the exact same time, which blew my mind. First, and this is Goldman Sachs. They're talking about, says Goldman Sachs predicts credit card losses will continue to climb through 2024. In other words, credit card losses. What does that mean? It means that credit card companies are not having credit cards paid back by those that have them. So those that are out there with debt are just not paying them back. So credit card companies are losing some money. Now that happens all the time, but in various amounts, various rates. They're saying that it's going to continue to climb, meaning credit card companies are going to lose more and more money. There will be more and more defaults through 2024, next year, and 2025. Then they said this statement, which blows my mind. What is unusual, they said, is that the losses are accelerating outside of an economic downturn. In other words, they're saying, we don't have any problems here. There's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Don't look over here. Look over here. Well, no, there is a problem in the economy. And let me get into that in a second. Credit card losses currently stand at 3.63%. And you might be thinking, well, that's not so bad. 3% isn't that bad for these credit card companies. Let's think about that. They talk about the great financial crisis. Look at this. Credit card companies are racking up losses at a faster pace than during the great financial crisis. They're talking about the 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, really 2008 when it was really bad. They're talking about that last financial crisis that we had. And they're saying that that the losses now are climbing faster than they did then. Well, that would tell most people that we probably have a problem. Then look at this. Losses currently stand at 3.63%. That's not that much, is it? Well, a time when Americans owe more on credit cards than they ever have before. Over $1 trillion. Okay, how many billions in a trillion? There's 1,000 billions in a trillion. So if credit card companies have lost 3.63% of a trillion, they've lost $30 billion. I'm sorry, $36 billion. That's not a small amount of money. So that means that of those in America that have defaulted so far on their credit cards during this time that we're not having any economic problems whatsoever, according to the investment bankers, well, they've lost $36 billion. And they think they're going to lose more in 2024 and more in 2025. But don't worry, because there's no economic crisis. Okay, why am I pointing this out? Well, let's look at this. The conference board shows their US leading indicators. I'll put a link to this. It's a great site. And they show the indicators, what they call a leading indicator, meaning an indicator shows that something's about to happen. It's leading the problem. So if you see here, here's their main indicator, their LEI, their leading indicator here for the economy. And back in 2001, I think that was like an 18-month recession, which they actually called a recession. You can see their indicator went below zero. So the indicator went negative, meaning there's going to be a problem. And the gray area here shows, yep, there was a problem. Okay, it comes back, Financial Times, everything's great. And then look, it dips below zero again around 2006, starts to tank. And all of a sudden, during the great financial crisis, which they all call this 2008, 9, 10 area, it is substantially below zero, comes back, everything's great. Then you see a dip during that whole crisis. We had the little health thing where you had to stay home. Then look what happens here. It goes below zero just recently, and it's way below zero. And everyone wants you to believe we're not having problems. Well, we are obviously having problems. So why am I telling you all this? I started the channel, like I said, to help people pick the right credit cards, use the right credit cards. But right now, the way the economy is going, the Fed is raising interest rates. Why? because they want to get inflation under control. So they want inflation to go down. So they raise rates. So companies, and we've shown this in previous videos, are going out of business. They're laying people off. Those people then have to do things such as sell their homes, which brings up the inventory of homes. Right now, homes are keeping fairly steady prices. Year over year, they're starting to go down. I believe they will continue to go down significantly, but they're going down because the Fed is forcing companies to go out of business, which lays people off, which means they have to sell their homes, which means there's more inventory of homes. So the prices come down. And then the price of homes, is a big component of inflation. So then inflation theoretically comes down. And therefore, the Fed has done their job. They've driven people out of work. That means that they're coming for your job. Now, you might be lucky and you might be fine. You may not. So I believe that it's imperative at this point in time that you really need to focus on getting out of any type of debt that you have. Particularly credit cards, because you're looking at 20, 25, 30% interest. And if you were to lose your job, you don't want to have to be making those payments. And if you're unable to make those payments, then you're going to default like the other $30 billion of defaults. And that is not going to help your credit score or your future. And eventually, if you're not able to make those sort of things, you might be looking at a bankruptcy issue. So watch our channel, watch other channels, do everything you can to get out of your debt. And there's a multitude of ways to do it with respect to credit cards, whether it's taking out a home equity loan. I actually don't suggest that as one of the ways to do it, because you're not eliminating debt. You're just moving it to theoretically a lower percentage rate, but you're also putting yourself at risk. But then there's moving it to another card for 18 months of 0% interest. That could help significantly. But most importantly, you want to pay down principal as fast as possible. We've got videos on that as well. The additional payments that you make, I should say, every month go right to principal, driving down your overall balance, driving down the amount of interest you have to pay every month. So you got to start with creating your budget, look at your budget and see where you can tighten things, spend less money, take that extra money, put it down to credit cards and get rid of them before we go into a financial problem with respect to the country as a whole, and you end up maybe possibly you losing your job or a stream of income or getting paid less. Who knows? The downside of paying off your debt, I don't really see one. The upside is that if there are some problems, you'll have less money that needs to go out the door every month if you don't have to make those credit card payments. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We're going to have lots of ways to help you get out of debt